Hello, first hour. So we are continuing, or at least finishing off our Vietnam notes. We talked about how they finally got their independence from China and how they had different dynasties come in. The Lai Dynasty coming in. When a palace guard goes and takes over, each dynasty has their own achievements, and they are also following that Chinese example with the civil service exam and with Confucian scholars and all of that. So the Tran Dynasty, they came to the throne through marriage because there were only princesses, and so, hey, throw, a male of the Tran family towards the royal family, and you have the start of a new dynasty. And so they started in 1225. Of course, the Mongols come down and try to take them out, but they are unsuccessful since their tactics don't really work well in Vietnam. However, Hanoi is still sacked in the process. So that, of course, is something that's going to hurt. Also, under the Tran Dynasty, 30-volume history of Vietnam is written, which historians love. Thank you very much, Vietnam. And then the dynasty ends when Ho Khoi Lai goes and overthrows the dynasty in 1400, starting the Ho Dynasty, where they were going and probably bringing in another golden age to Vietnam, going and switching to paper currency instead of bronze coins, adding mathematics to the civil service exam, going, of course, and doing that check that you must do land reform, standardizing measurements, switching to a Vietnamese script, Nam script, and of course, investing in warships and cannons because, hey, right to the north, you have the treasure fleet of the Ming Dynasty, so you better build some boats. However, the Ming Dynasty came in and took them out actually rather quickly, which, stops you from having a golden age and was kind of a surprise to Vietnam, and put the Ho Dynasty in, this position in Vietnamese history where they're really looked down upon, simply because China was able to come in and conquer them. 20 years later, the Li Dynasty comes in and takes over. They are known as the later Li because we have the early one that we mentioned before. And this is the time period where they finally got all of Chamba, all of southern Vietnam under Vietnamese rule. Now, there is going to be divisions between the two halves, the north and the south. And yeah, this is something that we don't just talk about with the American war in Vietnam. No, this is something that already in the 1600s, you had two capitals created. And the South built a wall, man. They were not happy. And we have two different cultural regions. We have different mentalities, and we have different ethnic groups. So this is something to always take into consideration. Under the Li Dynasty, there was a peasant rebellion that was rather large. It was led by the Taeson brothers, and it goes and ends the dynasty. And we go and have the Nguyen family come on in, and they will reign from 1802 to 1945. However, most of their reign will actually be the French in control and them ruling as the puppets. Um, so, yes, contact with the West. It started under the Roman Empire, where we have merchants coming on over in 166 CE. They went to China, might as well go down to Vietnam, see what they have to offer to Rome, who's ready to buy anything. Marco Polo visited in 1292, but it is the French that come in and in the 1500s and start converting people to Catholicism. Roughly about 10% of Vietnam converts, and this number will stay roughly at 10%, continuing on even through the Vietnam War, with America's involvement in the Vietnam War. However, when that war ends, we do have people that are Catholic that flee the country of Vietnam because they do not want to stay under the rule of a communist nation for fear of religious persecution. So, but the Confucian scholars were highly skeptical of Christianity. And of course, this is going to be during the rise of Neo-Confucianism. And so they are, of course, going to put this outside religion in a very negative view, and that will be attached to Europeans as well. All right, jumping over to Korea. Korea is very mountainous. 70% of this peninsula are mountains, and they've got a 5,400-mile coastline. And they are the in-between between China and Japan. So when we want Confucianism to come on and spread on over to Japan, well, it's first going to take hold in Korea and then make its way over to Japan. Same with Buddhism. It's first going to go into Korea, then it's going to go into Japan. So they're going to be the one. Unfortunately, because of Korea's close proximity to China, they're also, like Vietnam, going to have issues with China coming in and conquering them from time to time. Korea, because of its geography, because of its being so mountainous, you have to think of like Greek history, which we've already covered. You're probably going to have divisions simply because of the mountains. So yes, we're going to have three main kingdoms here in Korea that are going to develop. So the Silla Dynasty, among the most advanced in the world, they are going to be highly involved in medicine, in metal casting, astronomy, sculpting, and textile manufacturing. They had the same language and culture as the other kingdoms, but they still fought with them, kind of like, the Greek city-states fighting each other. However, we do also during this dynasty have the cultural flowering and writing, political institutions, and the arts. And in 692, they already opened their first Confucian Academy. And yes, we do have the civil service exam, but it's not like it is in Vietnam or China because it's only open to the aristocrats. So, hey, if you're already an aristocrat, you can become a bureaucrat and an aristocrat. Woo! Add more crats. And Buddhism, of course, becomes popular because it's going to be the intermediary between China and Japan. So, yes, they're going to be copying Chinese culture, writing style, and political structure. They tried to model their capital city even after the Tang Dynasty capital, and they just kind of, like Japan, selectively pick, but they just selectively pick a whole lot more than what Japan does from China. But just like Japan, they are going to start slowly moving to their own unique structure. So, for the Sia, though, the peasants are going to rise up and take them out. The Koryo Dynasty replaced the Sia in 918. Confucianism and Buddhism are influential and widespread. This is when we have woodblock printing coming in and metal movable type. So, yep, sorry, Johannes Gutenberg, you're going to be really cool with your movable type, but yeah, we've got the Koryos here in 918 already starting to make great advancements. For them, they're also involved with porcelain. The Ming, remember, they have white and blue, very standoutish white and blue. What the Koreans do is that they make this bluish green glaze that is very noticeable. You can see that by the picture. It's very distinct color of green. For their glaze, of course, something that if you would ever find that, you have a lot of money, but I don't think you're going to find an original back from their dynasty. Anyway, the Mongols do come in and conquer them in the 1200s. The Mongols take them out or invade them and have fighting from 1231 to 1250. And then the Mongols are going to be overthrown and kicked out in 1392. Japan goes and invades in 1590. However, Korea wins the war in 1596. Now, a very noticeable person from the Korean peninsula is King Sejong. He goes and says, "Hey, I want to move away from Chinese characters. However, I want our new characters to look like how our mouth pronounces it," which is quite a big feat for his scholars to complete, because I mean, yeah, our letter A does not look like how we speak the letter A. So right now, just try to think, how in the world are you going to devise an alphabet to look like what your mouth actually does for making the sound? How in the world would you draw out the letter R? How are you going to draw out the letter T? because, a T doesn't really look exactly like what we're doing to make the sound. So we're just, can try to figure that one out. So anyway, they are successful in terms of what the emperor desired, and they do have their new Korean phonetical alphabet that comes on in, and when they do that, literacy skyrockets, and then we have a push for improvement in scientific technology, which is also going to be coming out because of this. And Mr. Dexter is now going to also switch over and play this wonderful YouTube video for you. So thank you. And we're going to be switching over here to the Renaissance PowerPoint after you watch this YouTube video. Enjoy.